Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever wondered why the strongest people rarely announce their next move? What makes silence so powerful in a world that never stops talking? And why is focusing on yourself often the greatest secret to real success? When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you stop chasing approval and start building real power. Silence sharpens your thinking, solitude reveals your direction, and while others waste energy reacting to noise, you rise quietly, becoming stronger, clearer, and far more dangerous. You grow in silence, and you win in silence. The loudest victories are often born in the quietest rooms. In a moment, you'll see how focusing on yourself and staying silent builds strength, clarity, and control. When you work in silence, you command respect without ever demanding it. Think about it. The loudest person in the room is rarely the one people trust. The boaster, the bragger, the one who tells everyone their plans often does nothing. But the quiet one, the one who simply shows up and builds, that's the person others quietly watch. Not because of what they say, but because of what they become. Silence is your power, not because words are weak, but because results always speak louder. When you stop announcing your every move, you stop inviting doubt, delay, and distraction. You take full command of your energy. Why does silence matter so much? Because in silence, your plans grow roots. Without noise, you can finally hear your own intuition clearly. In silence, you protect your dreams from early judgment, even from your own fear. A goal shared too soon can die in the hands of someone who doesn't see what you see. So how do you begin? By making your progress private. You rise early and tell no one. You stay late and expect no praise. You sharpen your mind like a blade, not to show off, but to be ready. You stop proving and start improving. Imagine two workers in a field. One shouts about the seeds he plans to plant, while the other bends his back, digs in silence, and sows without a word. Months later, whose harvest do you notice? The one who made noise, or the one who made progress? Are you building quietly or broadcasting blindly? Do you allow silence to grow your strength, or are you still waiting for applause to begin? Respect is never demanded. It's something you attract. By doing the work when no one is watching and doing it right, your results will announce you louder than any words. Your power increases the moment you stop explaining yourself. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your ambition. You don't need to justify why you train harder, aim higher, or reject mediocrity. The more you explain, the more you weaken your strength. Those who misunderstand you aren't owed your energy. They're simply proof that you're rising. The truth is, explaining weakens intention. Each time you break your path into pieces for someone who can't see your vision, you rob yourself of the focus needed to finish the mission. Some won't understand, not because you're wrong, but because they've chosen comfort over growth. You cannot follow them. Why does silence serve you better? Because it draws a line. It says, I know what I'm doing, and I don't need your approval to do it. That kind of inner clarity shakes the world without shouting. You stop explaining by replacing words with execution. You wake up and act. You reject empty conversations. You stop defending your path and simply walk it. You let outcomes, not words, make your case. Picture a young apprentice in a blacksmith shop. One talks all day about becoming a master. The other listens, learns, strikes the metal, and builds. Months later, who would you trust to forge your sword? Are you still trying to convince others you're serious, or are you letting your actions speak for you? You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to understand yourself so deeply that no outside opinion can shake your resolve. That's where true power begins, when you stop explaining and start becoming. Growth starts the moment you withdraw from the noise. There's a kind of noise that drowns dreams. Gossip, jealousy, and chatter from people doing nothing, yet holding opinions about everything. If you're not careful, that noise becomes your environment, then your mindset, and eventually your life. Silence isn't escape, it's elevation. When you step away from the noise, you don't become less social, you become more sovereign. You begin thinking clearly, choosing what deserves your attention instead of reacting to whatever is loudest. Why does stepping away matter? Because the world rewards clarity, and clarity is born in silence. Most people can't hear themselves think because they're too busy absorbing everyone else's fears. And if you absorb fear, you'll act in fear. But if you protect your silence, you'll plant boldness. How do you withdraw? You guard your time like gold. You avoid rooms where ambition is mocked. You spend evenings reflecting, not reacting. You study in private, improve in secret, and sharpen discipline when no one is clapping. Now imagine this. Two warriors prepare for battle. One shouts, drinks, and laughs with the crowd. The other is alone in a cave, quiet and focused. When the fight begins, which one do you trust to win? Are you living in your cave, or still trapped in the crowd? Do you choose silence to grow, or noise to be seen? The silence you keep will one day shout on your behalf. Withdraw from the noise, and you'll find the signal. Step away from the crowd, and you'll meet your purpose. You don't need permission to rise. You need conviction. Nobody is coming to crown you. Nobody will hand you your worth. You must rise on your own terms. And when you do, something becomes clear. Those who doubted you will fall silent, and those who believed will already be walking beside you. Yet most people wait. They wait for applause, for approval, for the perfect moment. They wait for someone to say, "You're ready." But readiness isn't granted, it's chosen. Why do so many hesitate? Because they fear judgment. They're afraid to step forward without a chorus cheering them on. But winners move anyway. Not because they lack fear, but because their conviction speaks louder than doubt. You begin without approval by deciding your value privately. You set your standards high and follow them, whether anyone is watching or not. You take small steps with certainty, and every time you act despite fear, you strengthen your inner authority. Picture a sculptor chipping away at stone. At first, no one believes it will become anything. But the sculptor sees the vision. He doesn't argue, he chisels. And one day, others gather, not to doubt, but to admire. Are you still waiting for the crowd, or are you building in solitude? Do you act as though you are already worthy, or do you shrink when no one validates you? Stop waiting. You don't need a spotlight to begin. You need resolve. When your conviction becomes greater than your need for permission, nothing can stop you from rising. The less you speak, the more you hear. Most people fear silence, rushing to fill it with words, quick thoughts, scattered opinions, casual gossip, endless talk of dreams they never build. They don't realize that every unnecessary word drains power from their presence. You must do the opposite. By speaking less, you gather strength. You learn, observe, and prepare. You gain nothing while talking, only repeating what you already know. But when you're truly quiet, you open a door into others, into the situation, into yourself. Through that door, wisdom enters. The one who listens notices what others miss. Shifts in tone, hesitations in voice, tension behind smiles. They don't just hear words, they hear intent, and that awareness gives them an advantage. The world isn't ruled by the loud, it's ruled by the aware. Most people speak from discomfort. Silence feels like a spotlight, so they start performing. But power doesn't perform. Power waits, watches, and speaks only when the moment demands it. Why is silence more powerful than noise? Because it creates space for observation, for clarity, for decisions that aren't rushed but refined. In a world addicted to speed and noise, silence becomes an act of rebellion and mastery. Think of great generals, wise elders, and sharp negotiators. They don't babble. They wait. They listen. They speak last. And when they finally do, the room shifts. People lean in. Why? Because when you speak less, your words carry weight. Your voice becomes rare, and in a noisy world, rarity commands attention. This isn't about being passive. It's about choosing your moment and developing the discipline to observe first. You learn to sit with tension and ambiguity without rushing to fill it with words. You train your mind to watch instead of react, to understand instead of assume. Picture this. Two people walk into a boardroom. One dominates the room, talking endlessly. The other listens, silently analyzing. When the chatter fades and the quiet one finally speaks, everyone listens, not because of volume, but because of value. Which one are you becoming? When you speak, do your words move the room, or simply fill time? Do you speak to offer insight, or just to escape silence? The goal isn't to be mute, but measured, to make your voice mean something. Because once people realize your words matter, they listen even before you open your mouth. Train yourself in every conversation to resist the urge to rush in. Instead, lean back, observe, let others reveal their minds. Use silence like a weapon, like a tool, like a throne. And when you do speak, let your words land like a hammer. Because in the quiet between your words, that's where your real power lives. You are meant to be quietly dangerous. There's a kind of strength that doesn't need applause. It doesn't show up to be seen. It shows up to win. That kind of strength doesn't broadcast itself. It doesn't beat its chest or demand attention. It simply is. It watches. It waits. It sharpens in the background while the world gets lost in noise. And when it moves, it strikes with such clarity and precision that nothing stands in its way. That's the kind of person you must become. The world trades in noise, but you must deal in depth. Certainty isn't born in crowds. It's born in solitude. It's built in the early mornings and the late nights, in those moments when no one is watching, when every choice you make is for your future self, not for applause. That's where true confidence grows, not in volume, but in clarity. Not in being seen, but in knowing who you are. You become quietly dangerous by doing what others avoid. You cut off distractions, refuse shallow talk, and treat your routine as sacred. You master the unglamorous fundamentals while others chase trends. Every step you take is deliberate. Even your stillness has direction. Think of the tiger in the jungle. It doesn't chase noise or seek attention. It crouches low, blending into silence. It studies, and when it moves, every creature feels its presence. That's not performance, that's power. You must build yourself into that kind of presence. So ask yourself, are you filling your days with movement that means nothing, or are you sharpening your edge in ways no one sees? Are your actions rooted in purpose, or just performances for validation? Power doesn't come from volume. It comes from discipline, precision, and patience. From the quiet commitment to grow when no one claps and no one cares. That's where your weapon is forged. That's where your authority is born. When you show up not with noise, but with undeniable mastery, people shift. Rooms adjust. Eyes turn. Not because you demand attention, but because your silence speaks louder than any speech. You must become the one they never saw coming. The one who doesn't shout, but strikes. The one who doesn't announce, but arrives. The one whose presence changes the temperature of the room. Without a word, be quiet. Be sharp. Be dangerous. Your progress multiplies when you stop competing and start creating. Most people wake up each day trapped in a race they never agreed to run. They don't question it. They just start moving. They look left, then right, measuring how fast others are going, how far others have come. They match their pace to strangers. They copy routines, strategies, even dreams of people they've never met, because they're afraid of falling behind. But behind what? Behind whom? That's the trap. The race was never yours. The goal was never to outrun others. The goal was to build something only you can bring into this world. A vision that lives inside you, not in someone else's shadow. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. Your silence becomes sacred. You stop racing, you stop chasing. You listen and find your rhythm, your tempo, your mission. You stop trying to win a game designed by others and begin designing your own. This shift isn't just mental, it's spiritual. Because comparison is noise, loud, constant, draining. It drowns out your voice, making you doubt your pace, your progress, your purpose. Comparison says you're behind. Creation says you're becoming, and becoming takes time. It requires presence and faith in something deeper than performance, truer than validation. Creation is born in stillness, not in applause, not in scrolling, not in noise. It begins when you withdraw from the race. When you stop staring at what others are doing and return to your own hands, your own ideas, your raw material. You craft, you shape, you feel. You don't rush it, you don't explain it, you simply express it. That's where greatness lives. Not in speed, but in depth. Picture an inventor alone in his dimly lit workshop. Outside, the world rushes by, but he doesn't look up. He's focused, sweating, adjusting tiny gears, sketching blueprints, testing again and again. He's not checking how far his neighbor has gone. He's not worried about deadlines set by someone else. He's creating. And when he finally steps out, he doesn't reveal something borrowed. He unveils something original, something only he could have made. That's what your life should feel like. Are you still running a race that belongs to someone else, haunted by the pace of people who aren't even on your path? Or have you chosen to slow down, go inward, and build? This world doesn't need another replica. It needs you. Fully, deeply, silently, deliberately you. Withdraw from the crowd, silence the noise, and refuse to compete for things that don't fulfill you. Instead, pour your time and soul into the work that does. Pour it into what only you understand right now. Let it evolve. Let it mature in private. Let it breathe. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs truth. And truth takes time to build. So stop running. Start creating. Craft something so real, so rare, that when the world finally sees it, it stops, it listens, and it remembers. Not because you were the fastest, but because you were the only one who built what you built. That's how you win a race you were never meant to run, by refusing to run it at all, and by creating something no one else can. Every great transformation begins in silence. Before anything magnificent is seen, it must first survive the dark. Before a tree ever greets the sun, it struggles silently beneath the soil, pushing against the earth, anchoring roots it will one day need to withstand storms. That quiet, unseen phase is everything. Yet most people fear it. They rush to bloom before they've built a foundation. They crave recognition before they've earned resilience. But real transformation begins in silence. It requires disappearance before it delivers power. So remember this. Before you become strong, grounded, and unshakable, you will pass through a season where no one notices you. No one praises your effort. No one sees your work. That season isn't punishment. It's preparation. It is sacred. It is the womb of your becoming. And only the disciplined survive it. From the outside, it may seem like nothing is happening. You may doubt yourself, and others might question you. But beneath that stillness, change is unfolding. Muscles are forming in the mind. Habits are hardening into steel. Ideas are being shaped with fire and solitude. Roots are digging deeper into the ground, building strength that will one day hold the weight of your future. That strength cannot be rushed. It must be earned in private. Why must this phase be silent? Because transformation is fragile. It comes with discomfort, uncertainty, fatigue, and self-doubt. If you expose it too soon, the world will try to shrink it. Even well-meaning people project their fears onto what they cannot understand. They'll tell you to be realistic. They'll tell you to slow down, to choose something safer. And if you're not careful, their fear becomes yours. Their limits poison your vision. That's why you keep it sacred. You protect your transformation by staying hidden until the time is right. You show up daily, not for praise, but for purpose. You build without announcing it. You sacrifice without seeking sympathy. You endure setbacks without explaining them. Every repetition adds a layer of strength. Every quiet day stacks on the last until the work becomes who you are. You don't talk about the grind, you become it. Think of the butterfly in its cocoon. From the outside, it looks dead, motionless, forgotten. But inside, a miracle is taking place. A creature is shedding its old form, rearranging itself at the cellular level. No cameras, no applause, only process. And then one day, it breaks free. Not with noise, but with wings. It flies, not because someone pushed it, not because it was validated, but because it stayed the course in silence. Can you do the same? Can you stay faithful to your growth when no one is cheering? Can you walk through the long, dull days without quitting, without announcing, without proving? You must resist the urge to reveal what isn't ready. The world doesn't need a preview of your potential. It needs the person you become after the silence, not during it. So remain in the shadows. Keep planting, keep pushing, keep sharpening. When the time comes, you won't have to introduce yourself. Your presence will speak for you. True transformation doesn't ask for attention, it commands it. Silence builds discipline, and discipline builds everything. Every great life isn't built on excitement. It's not carved from grand ideas or bursts of inspiration. It's forged quietly and consistently through discipline. Not the kind people applaud in public, but the kind that happens in silence, when no one sees you, when no one claps. It's when you choose to do what must be done simply because it has to be done. That is where the foundation is laid. And that foundation doesn't begin in movement. It begins in stillness, in silence. When you sit with yourself, stripped of distractions and validation, you hear what most people spend their lives running from. You hear your excuses, your unfinished promises, the gap between who you are and who you could be. That confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is sacred. It is necessary. Because within that discomfort lies your compass, your calling, your first step toward mastery. Why is silence essential to discipline? Because silence reveals truth, and truth demands action. With no noise to hide behind and no crowd to impress, you face the raw, unfiltered reality of your life. You see clearly what must change, and you can either turn away or begin. Discipline is born in that beginning. Not when it's easy, not when it feels good, but when everything in you wants to delay or detour, and you still show up. You still do the work. That is how you build the edge. Not by waiting for motivation, but by acting before it arrives. By setting a standard and keeping it, even when no one is watching. The bricklayer doesn't build a fortress in a single day. He lays one stone, then another, then another. Day after day, rain or shine, no cameras, no crowd, no fireworks. Just hands on stone, sweat on skin, faith in the process. In time, what once looked like nothing becomes impenetrable. Not because he rushed, but because he refused to quit. That is discipline. Quiet, steady, deliberate effort that compounds until greatness is inevitable. You don't need more plans. You don't need more talk. You need repeatable action. You must train your mind to do what's right, especially when it's hard. You must say no to comfort when it tries to seduce you. You must become someone who keeps promises to themselves, not because someone is watching, but because you are. This kind of power isn't loud. It doesn't brag. It moves silently, with intent, conviction, and unshakable resolve. Real discipline doesn't announce itself. It shows up. It sharpens in the dark. And when it's needed, it performs. So ask yourself, are you waiting for motivation to move? Or have you decided to become reliable? Are you addicted to noise, hype, and validation? Or can you operate in complete silence, knowing that what you're building matters, even if no one sees it? The truth is, most people start, but very few stay. Most speak of what they'll do, but few actually do it, quietly, daily, relentlessly. And those who do, those who lay the bricks, those who face the silence, those who keep showing up when the world stops clapping, they become dangerous. They become disciplined. And with discipline comes freedom. Not freedom from effort, but freedom through it. Freedom to choose your path, to earn your confidence, to build a life that holds weight. And that kind of life doesn't come from dreams. It doesn't come from feelings. It comes from showing up when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's quiet. Lower the volume of the world, step into the silence, listen to what must be done, and then do it. Day after day, brick by brick. In that stillness, your edge is forged, and in that discipline, your destiny is written. People notice results, not promises. The world is flooded with noise, voices rising every hour to declare bold intentions, set lofty goals, and broadcast what they plan to do. It's easy to speak. It costs nothing to say you'll change your life, start the business, write the book, or chase the dream. But over time, words lose weight. The more someone says without doing, the more invisible they become, not because they're quiet, but because they're empty. Their presence fades under the weight of broken promises until eventually, no one listens, not even themselves. But then there's another kind of person, one who doesn't talk much, one who doesn't feel the need to announce every move. While others are busy crafting headlines, this person is quietly building the story. While the world scrolls past declarations and digital noise, they're deep in the work. Head down, hands busy, fully committed to the craft. And when the results come, they don't need to say a word, the work speaks. This is what separates the remembered from the forgotten. It's not what you say you'll do. It's what gets done. Why do so many never reach the goals they claim to chase? Because they mistake enthusiasm for execution. They believe passion is enough. But passion burns out, excitement fades, and the spark that makes you say you'll do something has no fuel unless it's followed by discipline. And discipline doesn't thrive on noise. It grows in silence, in repetition, in the quiet space where no one is clapping, and the only voice you hear is your own saying, "Do it anyway." People think making a public promise holds them accountable. Sometimes it does, but more often, it becomes a trap. It gives a false sense of accomplishment. You speak it, people react, and for a moment it feels like progress, but nothing has been built. No weight has been moved. You've fed the ego and starved the work. You shift your life not by shouting louder, but by moving smarter. You write your goal down once, then stop talking about it. You act on it daily. You don't check in with others for approval. You don't wait for inspiration. You let the days stack. You let the habits settle. And one morning, without fanfare, the dream you once imagined is real. Not because you wished it into existence, but because you worked it into existence. Imagine two builders. One climbs to the top of a half-finished tower and declares to the city, "This will be the greatest structure ever built." People cheer, cameras flash, but weeks pass and little changes. His voice fades, his promises grow stale. Meanwhile, across town, the second builder says nothing. He arrives before dawn, stays after dusk. He lays each brick with care. No updates, no speeches. Just work. And one day, people wake up and see the tower. No announcements were needed. The result announced itself. This is your choice. Each day you're either the talker or the builder. You're either adding weight to your words or stripping them of meaning. Are you announcing your vision, or are you constructing it? Are your results visible, or is your voice louder than your proof? You don't need to tell the world what you're doing, you need to do it. When the work is finished, when the outcome is undeniable, you won't have to explain. People will see it. They'll feel it. Because the greatest proof is always performance. The loudest introduction will always be results. What you finish matters far more than what you start. Anyone can begin a race, most do. But few cross the line, and fewer still do it quietly, without seeking praise. Yet those are the ones the world remembers. Not because they demanded attention, but because they earned it. Let your work become your voice. Let your consistency become your reputation. Let your finished product become your legacy. Because in the end, people won't quote your announcements. They won't share your promises. They'll remember your impact, what you built, what you delivered, what you left behind. Step back from the noise. Step into the work. Trust that silence backed by action will always speak louder than noise backed by nothing. Let your work speak. Let your results introduce you. Let what is real be louder than what is promised. That's how you become unforgettable. What you build in private will one day speak in public. Understand this deeply. Every silent hour, every unnoticed effort, every small task done without recognition is a seed. A seed not planted in soil, but in time. And like any seed, it doesn't bloom the moment it's buried. It needs space. It needs nourishment. It needs consistency. These silent hours, these disciplined moments away from applause, are the foundation of lives that cannot be ignored. Look closely at those who seem to succeed overnight. The author whose book suddenly explodes, the entrepreneur who seems to come out of nowhere, the athlete who shines in one tournament and becomes a legend. What you see is the bloom. But what came before were basements, garages, early mornings, late nights, empty rooms where no one clapped. No spotlight, just repetition and commitment. They sacrificed the comfort of now to earn the weight of later. They gave up the dopamine of being noticed so that one day, when the time was right, the results would speak for them. Most people won't do that. They can't stand the quiet. They confuse visibility with progress. So they talk, they post, they announce what they're about to do. They dress up ideas that never get built. They crave attention before they've produced value. And when that attention doesn't come, they stop. They abandon the process because applause didn't arrive fast enough. But anything truly great takes time. Not just clock time, but quiet time. It takes uncelebrated days. It takes the discipline to keep returning to your work even when it feels like nothing is happening. That's why building in private matters so much. Because real growth is fragile at first. You need space to fail, space to adjust, space to experiment without commentary. You need to make mistakes without fear of judgment, to rebuild without having to explain why. And that can only happen in silence. That silence is your shield. It protects the early stages of your vision. It gives you space to strengthen ideas before exposing them. The world is quick to criticize, quick to categorize. If you reveal your work before it's ready, you invite noise before the roots are strong enough to hold. That's why you must protect your craft. Shut the door, turn down the volume. Block out the expectations and projections of others, and lose yourself in the work. Not for a deadline, not for a paycheck, not for recognition, but because you respect the process, because you know what you're building deserves your full attention. Picture the violinist who rises before dawn, practicing scales until their fingers bleed. Just the bow, the strings, the repetition. Day after day, year after year, until one evening they step onto the stage and play something that silences the room. What moves the audience isn't only the sound, it's the weight of invisible hours. The crowd never sees the mornings, but they feel them. And that is the goal, not to show off your effort, but to create something infused with it. something so refined, so alive with truth, that people feel it without you ever having to explain. So ask yourself, are you tending to your private world, or leaking energy trying to prove something to people who aren't even paying attention? Are you deepening your work, or decorating it in hopes of looking impressive? You don't owe the world a preview. You owe yourself the process. You don't need to be seen before you've built something worth showing. You don't need to prove you're great. Just become it. Quietly, completely. Let the applause come later when it's real. Let recognition arrive on its own when the work demands it. For now, honor the silence. Stay in it. Grow in it. Become in it. Because your private effort isn't wasted, and it isn't invisible. It's accumulating. Every focused hour, every disciplined act, every choice to keep going when no one is watching. It all stacks, preparing and strengthening you. And when it's ready, when you're ready, the world will know. Not because you shouted, but because your work spoke before you ever said a word. That is power. That is mastery. That is the life others cannot ignore. You win quietly long before you ever win loudly. Victory isn't found on the stage. It isn't handed out with applause or awarded under bright lights. Victory is claimed much earlier, before the world knows your name, before the medal is hung, before the headlines arrive. It is earned in quiet repetition. It is forged in unseen hours. It is the result of 1,000 small choices made when no one was watching and nothing was guaranteed. That's what most people miss. They think success arrives with recognition, that the spotlight creates greatness. But that's an illusion. The truth is less glamorous and far more powerful. Real victory begins in habits. It's in the early mornings when the alarm rings and you rise, not because you want to, but because you said you would. It's in the workouts finished when your body aches, the page written when your mind feels empty, the discipline followed on the days you'd rather rest. These small, brutal victories, quiet, consistent, uncelebrated, are where champions are built. Yet people often ignore this. They want the breakthrough without the boredom, the reward without the repetition. Why? Because the early stages of winning don't look exciting. They aren't dramatic. They don't provide a story worth posting or a scene worth filming. They're lonely. They're hard. They require patience and test your belief in yourself when you have no proof to point to. But if you skip them, if you avoid that quiet grind, your foundation will crack under pressure. You'll collapse not from lack of potential, but from neglecting the process. To be truly victorious, you must master your private conduct. That means honoring the promises you make to yourself. Staying faithful to the work when no one's watching, when no one cares, when there's no reward in sight. It's about building integrity in isolation. You don't need others to hold you accountable. You become accountable. You don't need recognition to stay motivated. You become relentless. Not because it's easy, not because it's fun, but because it's right. That's what separates those who want greatness from those who become it. Picture a great oak tree. When young, no one notices it. Small, unimpressive, it doesn't bloom right away. But year after year, it stays rooted. It endures wind, drought, and darkness. It doesn't rush, it deepens. While others search for shortcuts, it strengthens its core. And when the storm comes, it doesn't flinch. Its strength wasn't built above ground. It was forged in silence, where no one could see. That's how you must be. Quiet, consistent, rooted. So ask yourself, are your roots deep enough to survive the storm? Or are you hoping the wind will carry you to greatness? Because the wind doesn't lift you, it tests you. It reveals whether you've done the work when no one was watching. And if you haven't, it exposes you. That's the danger of chasing the stage without earning the soil. Too many people wait for the big moment, believing life will change when they finally get the opportunity, the platform, the attention. But big moments don't change you. They reveal you. And if you haven't been winning in the dark, you won't win in the light. It's the one who already paid the price in silence that earns the reward in public. That's why you must stop waiting for something big to begin. Your life changes the moment you start winning the small moments. The ones no one sees. The ones that feel too small to matter, but they do. They matter more than anything. So train in silence. Study when you're tired. Practice when you're uninspired. Build when you feel invisible and keep going. Not because someone is watching, but because you refuse to quit. That is integrity. That is what discipline demands. And that is how victory is born. When the world finally sees what you've become, it won't be because you announced it. It will be because your work spoke louder than anything you could have said. The strongest victories are the ones no one expected, Because they were built in silence. Let others talk. Let others wait. You have bricks to lay. And when the lights finally shine, you won't need to prove yourself. You'll already be the proof. Stillness sharpens your vision like a blade. You cannot see clearly in chaos. You cannot aim well in a storm. Yet most people still try. They run harder when lost. They speak louder when unsure. They take more action, any action, just to avoid the discomfort of stillness. But frantic movement doesn't bring clarity, it buries it. This is why silence matters. Silence clears the fog. It quiets the noise. It slows your breath and lets the real target rise from the haze. The truth is, most people don't fail from lack of talent. They fail because they never give their mind a chance to focus. Their energy is scattered, their thoughts divided. They hear too many opinions, say yes to too many things, and lose themselves in motion. They mistake activity for progress. Running in circles isn't moving forward. It's exhaustion disguised as effort. And vision? It doesn't vanish, it gets diluted. Not from blindness, but from distraction. The world glorifies speed, hustle, and noise, but lasting success belongs to those who know when to slow down. They understand that stillness is not laziness. Stillness is preparation. When you learn to sit quietly with your thoughts, something powerful happens. Surface noise fades. Deeper ideas rise. Patterns appear that others miss. You notice timing. You connect dots that only become visible when the mind is still enough to see them. Clarity cannot be forced, it must be found. And to find it, you must create space for it. You sharpen inner vision by carving out solitude. You think without interruption. You let your mind stretch beyond the shallow waters of instant response. That's where precision is born. In the quiet, in the empty, in the slow and deliberate pause between action. Picture the hunter in the woods. One storms through the trees, hoping noise will flush out opportunity. He is loud, impatient, desperate to force results. The other kneels in silence. He studies the wind. He listens to the birds. He waits, not out of laziness, but because he understands the rhythm of the environment. His stillness is not weakness, it is strategy. And when the moment comes, he acts with precision, with power, with purpose. This is the difference between chasing and choosing. Are you rushing from one opportunity to the next, hoping something finally works out? Or are you sitting still, observing, and deciding what truly deserves your energy? Here's the truth. You can't hit a moving target if you're always moving too. You must become still enough for the goal to come into view. You must let the dust settle. Only then can you aim with clarity. Only then can you strike with intention. And that single focused action, born from deep silence, will achieve more than 1,000 scattered steps ever could. Most people never reach this point. They fear silence. They confuse noise with meaning. They want to be seen doing something, anything, even if it leads nowhere. But the few who learn to wait, who learn to watch, who learn to think without urgency, those people become dangerous. Because when they move, they don't miss. Their actions come from alignment, not impulse. Their progress is steady, not frantic, and their presence carries weight. Not because they speak often, but because when they do, it matters. Stillness, then, is not optional. It is discipline, necessity, and a tool that sharpens judgment while strengthening resolve. In a world where everyone is distracted, the person who can hold focus becomes unstoppable. The one who can think clearly while others panic. That is the one who shapes the outcome. So train yourself to be still. Sit with your own thoughts instead of scrolling through someone else's. Wake up early just to think. Let your mind breathe again. In that quiet, you will find your edge. You will hear the voice that's been drowned out by the noise. And that voice, the one deep within you, it knows exactly what to do. When the time is right, you'll act. Not from pressure, not from fear, but from deep focused clarity. An action born from that place, steady, deliberate, powerful, is rarely wrong. Silence sharpens you. Stillness focuses you. When you move from understanding, not reaction, you become something rare. You become accurate. And in life, accuracy wins. Stand still, see clearly. And when your time comes, strike. You become dangerous when you master delayed gratification. There's a quiet, invisible strength in choosing not yet. In holding back, not from weakness, but because what you're building is too valuable to rush. In a world obsessed with speed, the one who knows how to wait becomes dangerous. Not for lack of ambition, but because patience gives ambition teeth. It's not how loud you dream. It's how long you're willing to build before asking for anything in return. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they sold out too early. They grabbed the low-hanging fruit. They shared the idea before it had formed. They ran for applause before they'd done the work. And they keep repeating the cycle, announcing goals instead of achieving them, choosing dopamine over discipline, relief over resolve. But nothing strong ever grows that way. Nothing lasting survives when it's built on shallow roots and rushed timelines. That's why your restraint is rare. You choose to stay in the shadows longer. You say, "Not yet," when others shout, "Look at me." You don't need to show every move. You don't crave instant rewards. You're not building to impress. You're building to endure. You're laying bricks carefully and deliberately, knowing that one day the world won't just see what you've built, it will stand on it. Why is patience so powerful? Because it doesn't just stretch time, it multiplies everything within it. Every hour you stay disciplined, the muscle grows. Not just physical strength, but mental toughness. Each day you delay gratification, your self-trust deepens. The longer you wait without giving up, the more formidable you become. Because patience isn't passive, it's focused. It's a decision. It's the inner armor that makes you unshakable when the test finally comes. Time is a great amplifier. It reveals what's built on sand and what's forged from steel. It exposes shortcuts, unmasks pretenders, and rewards those willing to wait, willing to outlast trends, willing to keep working while others grow bored. Time isn't your enemy. It's your greatest ally, if you learn to wield it. You cultivate this by doing what others refuse to do. You stay quiet when it would feel good to boast. You turn down opportunities that promise fame but demand your integrity. You study while the crowd relaxes. You prepare while others celebrate. You don't just think about your next move, you think 10 moves ahead. You operate like a chess master, calm, still, reading the field. You act only when the time is right, and when you do, it's not a reaction, it's checkmate. There is something deeply dangerous about the person who delays reward, who holds their fire, who walks past quick wins and keeps building. They know they're not chasing applause, but immortality. Not a moment, but a legacy. Meanwhile, others rush for scraps, attention, and proof they matter. But the throne? It isn't claimed by the loudest. It belongs to the most disciplined. The one who worked in silence. The one who waited. The one who watched others sprint ahead, burn out, and quietly said, "I'll see you at the top eventually." And when that day comes, when your moment arrives, you won't need to tell anyone. The result will announce itself. Not because you were lucky, but because you were relentless. Because you trained while others performed. Because you built when no one believed. Because you chose the long road, not for ease, but because it was right. So ask yourself, are you chasing scraps, hoping something sticks, or are you patiently building something so solid, so undeniable, that when it's revealed, no one can look away? Delay the reward. Deepen the skill. Strengthen the will. Say not yet, until the moment is undeniable. Let your work grow beneath the surface, rooted and unshaken. And when the time comes, don't just rise, arrive. The longer you wait, the more powerful you become. Not because you waited in weakness, but because you waited in control. And power, in its purest form, is never rushed. It's refined. That's how you outlast them. That's how you outgrow them. That's how you win, not just once, but forever. Not every battle is worth fighting. Some require walking away in silence. And silence isn't weakness. It's not always the backdrop to building something new. Sometimes it's the armor that keeps you from tearing yourself apart in battles unworthy of you. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every provocation is worth your energy. Not every challenge demands an answer. There is wisdom in restraint. There is strength in the one who refuses to be dragged into chaos just to prove they can fight. In a world quick to react, to speak, to defend at any cost, silence feels unnatural. It can feel like surrender. Yet true power lies in the pause, in the deep breath, in choosing peace over proving a point. Growth begins the moment you stop needing to answer every critic, to respond to every jab, or to prove your worth to those who never intended to see it. You grow when you stop reacting to every distraction. You grow when you realize not every attack is personal, and even if it isn't always worth your throne. Your energy is sacred. Your time is limited. Your mission is far too great to waste on the noise along the path. You don't throw stones back at every heckler when you're building something destined to stand beyond their reach. Why is silence such a powerful response in the face of conflict? Because it shields you from chaos. It keeps you grounded when the storm is loud. Silence is not passivity, it's precision. Choosing silence means choosing clarity over confusion, vision over reaction. You let the fire burn out while you keep planting seeds. You allow the dust to settle while moving forward with intention. You refuse to fight every battle, which makes you stronger in the ones that truly matter. The need to defend yourself in every argument is a trap. It makes your strength dependent on someone else's opinion. When you're always trying to clap back, to be the loudest in the room, you stop being strategic. You lose sight of your purpose. You start playing games that never mattered, and instead of rising, you sink. But when you remain silent, not from fear, but from confidence, you shift. You rise above the noise. You watch how quickly some fires die without fuel. You learn to conserve your energy for what truly deserves it. You stand firm, not by shouting, but by not needing to. And this strength is cultivated through discipline. When someone questions your character, you don't drop your values to respond. You stand taller. When they mock your work, you don't justify it, you refine it. You let results speak, you let consistency answer. You climb quietly, step by step, until even your silence becomes a statement. Picture a king standing on his balcony. Below, a crowd gathers, hurling insults like stones, desperate to provoke a reaction. But the king doesn't yell, doesn't throw anything back. He simply turns, walks inside, and continues ruling. That is power, because real power isn't loud. It is focused. It doesn't perform for the crowd. It builds behind the walls, and it lasts. So you must decide, will you answer every critic, waste energy on every petty fight, drain your spirit just to be right? Or will you rise, unbothered, unmoved, untouched by those who don't matter? You don't need to prove yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to convince those too small to see your vision. The truth is, if they could do what you're doing, they wouldn't have time to mock it. You don't need to win every battle. You only need to win the war. And winning the war means protecting your focus, your energy, your identity. It means choosing your fights with wisdom. It means understanding that walking away isn't weakness. It's strategy, it's leadership, it's power at its highest. The sharpest weapon in your arsenal is not always action. It is restraint, the kind that makes people wonder why you didn't respond, the kind that echoes louder than any rebuttal. Silence isn't empty. It's filled with strength, intention, and quiet resolve that says, I know where I'm going. You don't need to explain it. Let others talk. Let others throw stones. You have something greater to protect, something greater to build. Keep your peace. Guard your energy. Let silence be your strength. Because when the world is loud, it's often the quiet one who holds the real power. Your energy must be protected, not scattered. Each day you rise with a limited reserve, not just in your body, but in your mind, heart, and spirit. This is your fuel, your fire. And whether you guard it or give it away shapes everything ahead. Most people never see this. They waste energy on meaningless conversations, pointless arguments, and the constant urge to defend themselves to those who don't matter. They spend themselves trying to look strong instead of becoming strong, and by midday, they feel hollow. You weren't born to scatter, you were born to concentrate, to focus, to build, to move with intent. But clarity has a price, discipline. Discipline in where your energy goes, and discipline in what you allow into your mind. Every second wasted reacting to nonsense is a second stolen from your purpose. Every moment spent trying to convince someone who has already chosen not to understand is a moment stolen from creating something that speaks for itself. Most people don't burn out from doing too much of the right thing. They burn out from giving themselves to the wrong things. They try to be saviors for everyone, solutions to everything, available at every hour. They confuse being busy with being productive, being known with being needed. They waste time fixing what isn't theirs to fix, proving what doesn't need proof, and fighting battles with no prize. Exhaustion doesn't come from a mission that's too big. It comes from boundaries that are too small. That's why silence is more than a habit. It's a shield. It's how you preserve your power. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you stop giving away your dignity piece by piece. When you stop reacting to every opinion, every comment, every glance, you stop the bleeding. You begin to stand taller, not because you've gained new strength, but because you've stopped surrendering it to what doesn't matter. Silence isn't weakness. It's focus. It's maturity. It's the wisdom of knowing not every comment needs a reply, not every conversation deserves a response, and not every challenge is worth fighting. You don't owe the world your energy. You owe it to your purpose, your attention. That means being selective, ruthlessly selective, about your time, your space, your circle, and your thoughts. You step away from the noise, not because you fear the world, but because you've chosen to face something more meaningful, your calling. Chaos has a voice, and it's loud. But silence has a purpose, and it's deep. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to comment on everything. You need to keep building. And when storms try to distract you, you keep your hands steady on the craft. That is the mark of someone who finishes what they start. Picture a single candle in the middle of a storm. Every gust threatens to blow it out. Every drop of rain tries to drown its light. If it isn't shielded, if it flickers in response to every disturbance, it won't last long. But when placed behind glass, protected from the elements, it burns through the night. It becomes a light in the darkness. Not because it was the biggest fire, but because it was preserved. You are that flame. Your energy is the light, your purpose the fire, and your silence, your discipline, is the glass. That is the boundary that allows your brilliance to endure. Because it's not about how bright you burn in a moment. It's about how long you burn without fading. Endurance takes strategy. It takes restraint. It takes knowing what is truly yours to carry and what must be let go. So ask yourself, are you shielding your flame or letting the world blow it out one interruption at a time? Are you directing your energy like a warrior with a blade or letting it leak like water through your hands? You weren't built to be everywhere. You weren't meant to please everyone. And you weren't designed to waste your fire proving you're not weak. You were meant to protect what is yours. Your peace, your focus, your strength. It all begins with silence. It begins with pausing before you respond, stepping away from drama, choosing solitude over scattered attention, and saying no more often. Not to be cold, but to stay clear. You guard your mornings, protect your routines, and say yes only to what aligns. By doing so, you preserve your energy not just for survival, but for greatness. Because greatness is never built in noise. It's built in depth, in discipline, in deliberate effort protected by silence. So protect your flame. Let it burn, not in every direction, but in the right one. And when the world finally sees your light, let them realize it endured not because it shouted, but because it lasted. The less you talk, the more you hear what life is trying to teach you. There are moments when the answers surround you, not in the noise, but in the quiet, not in the explanations, but in the silence that follows. Yet most people never discover this. They are too loud, too restless, always needing to speak, to justify, to fill every space with words or motion. They believe clarity comes from more effort, more talk, more doing. But clarity doesn't shout, it whispers. Picture someone walking through a library, shouting their thoughts, demanding the secrets of the world. They never pause to read the books around them. They never hear the quiet wisdom waiting on every shelf because they're consumed by their own noise. That's how many people live. They talk over truth, rush past their own transformation, and treat pain as a problem to erase instead of a messenger to learn from. And because of this, they remain stuck. But if you truly want to grow, you must do what most people refuse to do. Listen, not only to people, but to patterns, to instinct, to your own conscience. When it whispers in the stillness of the night, you must pay attention, like a sailor reading the wind. Not by shouting at the sea, but by sensing the subtle shifts in the current. Success, peace, and wisdom are rarely found in loud victories, but in quiet adjustments. Stillness teaches, but only when you allow it. Life is always sending signals. A tension in your chest that warns something is wrong, a repeated frustration that shows where your boundaries are broken, or a silence that feels heavier than noise. Most ignore these signs. They speed past them, jumping from one goal to the next like stepping stones, afraid to pause in between. But because they never pause, they never reflect. And what isn't reflected upon can't be refined. What isn't refined keeps repeating. So they go in circles, impressive on the outside, unchanged on the inside. There is power in slowing down, in creating time not to plan your next achievement, but simply to be, to observe your day, your choices, your habits, your emotions. This is not wasted time. It is alignment time. The time you take to watch your life is the time that saves you from wasting years. You notice what's working. You see what isn't. You begin to hear the difference between your ego and your intuition. And most importantly, you start asking better questions, because life doesn't hand you answers right away. It gives you questions, ones that deepen if you have the patience to sit with them. These questions sharpen your direction, strip away illusions, and reveal the truth beneath the noise. But most people want quick answers, so they rush. They avoid the discomfort of silence. They bury the question under endless distractions. Yet silence is where the deepest answers live. Picture a traveler lost in the forest. One panics, yelling for help, thrashing through the brush until he's exhausted. In his noise, he misses the signs, the bent twig, the faint path, the moss on the tree. Another man sits still. He breathes. He listens. He waits. A bird call reveals the river's direction. The wind shifts. The sunlight strikes a tree in just the right way. He sees what the frantic man overlooked. Not because he was smarter, but because he was quieter. This isn't only about being calm. It's about being aware. Stillness sharpens your awareness. It reconnects you with the inner compass you were born with, but buried under layers of noise. The more you listen, the more you begin to trust it. You start to recognize when something feels off. You sense the pull of what's true, and that becomes the greatest guidance you'll ever receive. Not from books, not from people, but from the alignment of your inner wisdom with what life is quietly showing you. This doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting from the right state of mind. Working, building, moving forward with clarity, not confusion. From a center of silence, not a storm of emotion. That kind of action doesn't just move things. It moves the right things. So ask yourself, are you rushing past your own answers? Are you speaking over the guidance life is trying to give you? Are you filling your days with noise just to avoid the quiet that would transform you? Because the truth is, most of the change you're seeking won't arrive with thunder or applause. It comes in the stillness, when you sit with yourself long enough to notice what was always there, waiting. And when that moment arrives, don't rush it. Don't drown it out. Lean in. Stay a little longer, because the silence you fear may hold the answer you need. Let the world stay noisy. Let others chase, shout, and scramble. You become the one who listens, the one who learns what others miss. And in that stillness, you'll gain a wisdom no storm can shake. Slow down. Listen deeper. The voice you've been waiting for isn't gone. It's been waiting for you to quiet down enough to hear it. Every time you choose discipline and silence, you break the chains of your old self. The real battle isn't against the world. It's inside. You're fighting the version of yourself that pulls you back, the voice that tells you to stay in bed when you promise to rise early, the one that makes excuses when discipline calls. That version feels familiar, comfortable. It whispers ease, promising you safety, luring you into staying the same. And it waits, patiently, for the moment you're tired, discouraged, or distracted. If you're not careful, it will rule you. But you weren't made to be ruled by weakness. You were meant to master it. The only way to win this war isn't by shouting about change, but by becoming it in silence. You don't defeat your old self with declarations. You defeat it through consistent, quiet action, through discipline repeated daily, the kind no one sees. No one will applaud you for waking up at 5 a.m. to train your body or study your craft. No one will celebrate when you say no to temptations while others give in. No one will hand you a medal for going to bed early or for choosing the hard thing again and again. But that's where the chains break, not in public victories, but in private battles. In those moments when you're tempted to fall back, yet refuse. When your old self appears and you decide not to listen, that's where strength is forged. Most people lose this war long before they even know it exists. They blame the world, their circumstances, or their lack of time. But the truth? They chose ease over evolution. Every time life demanded more, they retreated into the comfort of old habits that no longer serve them. And so, they live and die never knowing who they might have become. But not you. You refuse to go back. Not because it's easy, but because you remember what it felt like to be stuck, ashamed, and powerless. You remember the emptiness of giving in to comfort, and you've tasted enough mediocrity to know it leads nowhere. So you change, not in one sweeping moment, but in small acts of discipline. You wake up a little earlier. You do the reps, even when your body resists. You read the page, even when you're tired. You keep the promise, even when no one else would notice if you broke it. And as you do, something shifts, not just in your results, but in your identity. Discipline stops feeling like a burden. It becomes who you are, as natural as breathing, as automatic as blinking, as steady as moving forward. You stop asking, should I? And start saying, I must. You no longer need bursts of motivation because habit has taken its place. You no longer beg for clarity because you've trained yourself to keep moving, even in the fog. Picture a sculptor in a quiet studio. Day after day, he strikes the chisel against a cold, unshaped block of stone. To the world, it looks like nothing is happening. Each strike seems small, each movement barely noticeable. But he knows. He trusts something is forming. One day, the curve of a face appears, then a shoulder, then a hand, until finally, the block is gone, and in its place stands a masterpiece. Not because of one strike, but because of 10,000 quiet, committed ones. That's your life. That's your potential. But it only comes alive if you chip away daily. If you stop wishing and start working, if you stop waiting for inspiration and start forcing yourself to act when you least feel like it. The days you feel the greatest resistance are the days your old self is testing you, waiting to see if you'll surrender again. But you won't. Not anymore. Because now you know the truth. Change doesn't break in crowds, and it doesn't snap in noise. It's forged in silence, in those painful, private moments of decision. When you stand face to face with your excuses and say, no more, freedom begins. When doubt weighs heavy on your back, and you still take the next step, that's when strength is forged. You gain freedom every time you deny ease and choose growth. Every time you embrace discomfort instead of retreating to the familiar. Each time you prove to yourself that you're not who you once were. You are reborn, not loudly, but relentlessly. Understand this. The true reward of discipline is not just achievement. It's transformation. It's knowing you've become someone who no longer runs, who doesn't break at the first sign of struggle. It's the quiet power of realizing your past no longer owns you. That weaker version of you still exists, but it no longer leads. You've taken back the reins. So if you're tired, good, it means you're working. If it's hard, excellent, it means you're growing. If no one notices, perfect, it means it's real. Because the moment you decide to fight, not the world, not your circumstances, but yourself, is the moment you begin to win where it matters most. Keep chipping away, keep moving forward, keep forging. Your masterpiece is forming, not out there, but within. And remember this, your value rises when you stop giving everyone access. You cannot be powerful and always available. That truth may feel uncomfortable in a world that rewards constant connection, instant replies, and nonstop hustle. But real power doesn't chase, it chooses. It doesn't flood rooms. It fills them with presence, then exits with purpose. If everyone can reach you, influence you, question you, and drain you at will, then you're not leading, you're reacting. You're not moving the world, you're being moved by it. You're not a lighthouse, you're just a lantern passed from hand to hand, slowly dimming. Remember this, value rises with rarity. The more accessible you are, the more people treat you as common. When you tolerate every kind of noise, you drown out your own voice. When you explain every move, you weaken the weight of your decisions. When you make yourself available to everyone, you lose yourself in their demands. This isn't isolation, it's erosion. Bit by bit, piece by piece, your clarity fades under the pressure to please, respond, and justify. Look around. The most respected voices don't speak constantly. The most effective leaders aren't the ones always visible, but the ones always intentional. Their presence is sharp, their absence is felt. Their influence comes not from being everywhere, but from being unforgettable. And that power comes from scarcity. Not because they try to be distant, but because they are focused, building something so meaningful they cannot afford to be distracted by everything. You must learn this discipline, not from ego, but from necessity. Become rare, not by withdrawing from life, but by mastering your direction. Know what you are building, and once you know, guard it with your life. Protect your energy the way a blacksmith guards the fire that shapes the blade. Guard your time the way a sculptor protects the hours it takes to perfect a single curve. You don't owe the world your constant attention. You owe your purpose your full devotion. This means stepping back, not out of fear, but out of respect. Respect for yourself, your craft, and your calling. It means not answering every message the moment it arrives. It means resisting the urge to always be visible, pleasing, or reacting. Let people wonder. Let them not know your every move. That mystery isn't manipulation, it's protection. You're not withholding out of pride, but out of principle. You're creating space for depth. And from that depth, your true power rises. People remember what is rare. They listen more closely to the quiet one who speaks with intent than to the loud one who never pauses. They notice the presence that enters with purpose and leaves without explanation. That's how weight is built. That's how impact is made. When you stop giving everything away, you become someone people must reach for. And in reaching, they grow in your restraint. Most people don't do this. They dilute themselves. They spread too thin, trying to be everything for everyone. They explain too much, speak without reflection, and show up in places that drain them just to be seen, liked, or included. And each time they do, their identity weakens. They lose the sharp edge of who they are. They become fog. Visible everywhere, but solid nowhere. Not you. You must resist that pull. You must say no more often, not to be rude, but to stay rooted. You must disappear from the noise so you can reappear with substance. You must guard your hours like treasure, because they are. Every hour spent on something misaligned is stolen from your mission. Every conversation that drains your focus is a tax on your spirit, and you cannot afford to be taxed by trivial things. Think of a lighthouse. It stands tall on a cliff, shining through storms and darkness. Its light is steady, not scattered. It doesn't rush down to the beach waving flags for attention. It simply shines from a distance, strong, reliable. And because of that distance, because of its stillness, it becomes a guide, a landmark, a force. You never see a lighthouse trying to be the city. You never see it begging to be noticed. It doesn't move. It anchors. Ask yourself, are you anchoring your presence, or drifting into every current that calls your name? Are you preserving your strength, or handing it out like a flyer, hoping someone will take notice? If your presence is to matter, it must be protected. Your words must be chosen. Your time must be filtered. Your focus must be non-negotiable. That doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you honest. It means you know your worth. It means you're building something so valuable within that not everyone deserves access to it. It means you are living with design, not by default. And remember, silence is not weakness. It is a weapon. It gives you space to think, to create, to evolve. It allows you to watch the world without feeling the need to react to it. It trains you to speak only when it truly matters. And when you do, people listen, because your words come from depth, not impulse, from reflection, not reaction. Sometimes, your absence will speak louder than your presence ever could. People will feel the space you once filled. They'll notice the stillness you leave behind. They'll wonder what you're building in silence. And that curiosity gives your work weight. You don't need to be at every event. You don't need to reply to every comment. Your discipline will speak, your restraint will echo, and your results will answer for you. So stop explaining, start elevating. Let them wonder where you went. Let them ask why you're so quiet. Let their curiosity grow while you spend your time creating. Don't fear being misunderstood. Fear being misused. Don't chase constant presence. Chase powerful presence. In the end, the ones who shape the world aren't those always available. They are the ones who guard their mind, protect their purpose, and preserve their presence until the right moment. And when that moment arrives, they don't just appear. They arrive. When you focus on yourself, you remove the limits others place on you. Every time you look outside for permission, approval, or direction, you give away something sacred. You begin to shrink, not in body, but in soul. You slowly mold yourself into someone else's reflection. Folding under the weight of others' fears, doubts, and small thinking becomes your prison. You hesitate not because your heart is uncertain, but because your eyes are fixed on faces that don't carry your vision. You delay your purpose, dilute your power, and grow distant from your own potential. But the moment you turn inward, everything shifts. The world may call it selfish, yet focusing on yourself is not selfish, it's survival. It's reclaiming your life from the grip of noise, confusion, and dependence. It's declaring that you refuse to live as a copy of someone else's comfort zone. The world will always try to define you with labels, expectations, and outdated limits. It will tell you who you're allowed to be, how far you can go, and what's realistic for someone like you. But you aren't here to wear their labels. You're here to become who you were meant to be, not who they need you to be. And that becoming requires one thing above all: focus. Not on them, on you. So why do so many avoid silence, resist solitude, and drown their thoughts in distraction? Because self-focus demands responsibility. It isn't easy to face your reflection without excuses, to examine your patterns without blame, to admit you are both the architect and the wrecking ball of your own life. Yet inside that truth lies the freedom most never find. Because if you created it, you can change it. That ownership is the beginning of becoming unstoppable. And it starts not with grand gestures, but with better questions. Not, what do they think of me? But what do I think of me? Not, how do I fit in? But what do I stand for? These questions strip away illusion. They strip away the need for applause and bring you back to the root, your own voice. From that root, you build a life that's real. A life anchored in purpose, not popularity. In conviction, not consensus. Picture a blacksmith in a quiet forge, alone, focused. Each strike of the hammer is deliberate. He's not checking for approval or asking permission to create. He works in silence, shaping fire and steel into something that lasts. Others mock him, call him rigid or obsessed, until the day they need his sword, until they feel the strength of something forged in solitude. Then they come knocking. But by then, he doesn't need their validation. He never did. He always knew what he was building. And that certainty is what made him powerful. So ask yourself, are you in your forge or on their stage? Are you building your truth or rehearsing their script? Because the longer you wait for others to understand your path, the longer you remain stuck. You weren't born to be a translation of someone else's fear. You were born to be a force. That force only appears when you stop waiting for the world to make room and start carving your own place with your hands. This isn't a call to isolation. It's a call to alignment. To stop scattering your focus, trying to be everything for everyone. To stop bending your soul to fit rooms that were never meant for your voice. When you focus on yourself, you stop reacting and start creating. You stop explaining and begin becoming. Slowly, steadily, deliberately. You evolve, not because others see it, but because you feel it. And here's the paradox. The more you focus inward, the more your outer world begins to shift. Not because the world changes you, but because you've changed. You move differently. You speak with more weight. You attract what aligns and release what doesn't. People may say you've changed. Let them. Change is the price of elevation. When your focus sharpens, your growth becomes unstoppable. That's when you rise beyond limits. No one can stop what they didn't start. No one can sabotage what they didn't build. When strength comes from within, it can't be stolen. And once that power is yours, you never give it back. So stop looking outward for worth. Stop scanning faces for direction. Turn inward. Stand at the forge. Pick up the hammer. Ask the hard questions. Build what the world can't see yet. Let them mock. Let them misunderstand. Let them stay comfortable. You've got work to do. In silence, in focus, in fire. Silence makes you immune to both praise and criticism. The moment you rely on praise, you hand over the reins of your strength. You let others dictate your worth. When you fear criticism, you hesitate. You pull back. You tiptoe through your own potential. But the moment you free yourself from both praise and insult, you unlock a rare freedom. A freedom that cannot be bought, borrowed, or begged for, only forged in silence. Silence is not passive. It is a discipline, a fortress of the mind where you learn not to flinch at applause or recoil at judgment. You grow complacent, softened by comfort that dulls your edge. And when criticism comes, if you're not rooted, doubt creeps in. You start questioning your direction, shrinking your ambition to match someone else's narrow vision. In both cases, whether flattered or attacked, you give away access to your internal compass. As long as your emotions depend on the shifting winds of public opinion, your path will never truly be your own. You become a puppet, celebrating when they clap and collapsing when they boo. Why do so many people never reach their potential? It's rarely a lack of talent or fate. It's because they chase applause. They become addicted to attention, validation, and being liked. Their identity begins to rely on others' reactions. And the tragedy? When the applause fades, they stop. They question themselves, or worse, they give up. When criticism arrives, they crumble. But greatness doesn't rise and fall with the crowd. It keeps moving. It stays the course. It remains immune to praise and resilient against judgment. That kind of inner strength isn't built overnight. It's forged in silence, in the early mornings when no one sees you working, It's built in the hours you spend refining your craft, not for applause, but because it matters to you. It's built in those lonely moments when everyone else has gone home and you're still there, focused, grounded, intentional. You stop asking, will they like this? And start asking, is this true to me? That's when you become rooted in purpose, and that purpose becomes your anchor. You choose what's right, not what's easy, not what's popular. You don't show up to impress anyone. You show up to express something real, something earned, something worthy. Praise becomes like the wind. It passes through, but it doesn't lift you, and it doesn't hold you back. Criticism becomes feedback, not a verdict, not a death sentence. It sharpens you like a blade against stone, but it does not break you. Picture a ship sailing through a storm. The waves crash, the wind howls like 1,000 voices, but the ship does not argue with the weather. It doesn't plead for calm. It stays on course because the captain knows where he's going. He trusts the map. He trusts the mission. He doesn't need the ocean's approval to move forward. That's who you must become. Not the storm, not the sails, but the captain. Centered, unshaken, focused. Ask yourself, are you chasing approval or anchoring to your mission? Are you letting praise and criticism steer you off course? Or are you guided by your own inner compass? Because here's the truth. If you live for their praise, you will die by their rejection. If you rise only when they clap, you will fall when they go silent. And the world will go silent. It always does. The spotlight fades. The compliments stop. And all that remains is you, your work, your choices, your soul. If those aren't strong, if they're not built to last, no amount of praise will save you. When you no longer crave applause and no longer fear judgment, you become unstoppable. You stop living reactively and start leading intentionally. You stop proving and posturing, and instead you create, refine, and become. What you build from that place is indestructible. Nothing outside of you can shake what is solid within. So train yourself in silence. Let the world think what it wants. Let them praise. Let them doubt. But you keep showing up. Keep moving forward. Not because they cheer or boo, but because you must. Because the mission matters more than the moment. Purpose is louder than praise. You weren't born to be someone's echo, but to be whole. Let silence be your strength. Let stillness be your answer. Let your results speak. And when others come looking for explanations, validation, or permission, you'll already be too far ahead to hear them. Not out of pride, but out of peace. You've learned what most never do. Praise may be pleasant, criticism may sting, but neither controls you anymore. Your future is watching the choices you make in secret. A stronger, wiser, more grounded version of you is waiting, not in some distant dream, but in the space between your daily decisions. That version doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt. It isn't summoned by applause or one grand moment of glory. It's shaped slowly, patiently, in the quiet. Forged not in the public eye, but in private resolve. In the moments when nothing is expected of you, yet you demand more of yourself anyway. Most people miss this truth. They think the future is built in dramatic decisions, promotions, or public recognition. But it's not. The future is built in the ordinary. In forgotten hours, in early mornings when the world sleeps, but you're awake, working, learning, becoming. It's crafted in late nights when rest tempts you, but you go further. These quiet hours are the anvil and hammer of transformation. These are the bricks of your destiny. Why do the silent choices matter more than the loud ones? Because the loud moments can be deceiving under the spotlight. Anyone can pretend. Anyone can summon energy for a single performance, a single push. But that's not mastery, it's theater. The real measure of who you are is revealed in what you do when no one's around. When the applause has faded and the cheering stops, that's when it becomes real. It's easy to stay disciplined when others are watching. It's easy to be driven when someone is holding you accountable. But what happens when it's just you and that voice in your head telling you to quit, to delay, to indulge just this once? That's where your future is decided. Not on the stage, but in the shadows. Not when you're praised, but when you're alone and tempted to take the easy way, and you don't. You master your future by mastering these invisible choices. You choose to read when your body tells you to scroll. You choose to train when your mind tempts you with comfort. You choose to study, to write, to build, to reflect. Even when there's no one to impress, no trophy to win, no audience to validate your effort. Because deep down, you know the truth. Every small decision stacks. Every act of discipline becomes a seed. And in time, those seeds grow into results too undeniable to ignore. People may call it overnight success, but you'll know better. You'll know it was earned in the dark. Picture a farmer working the fields under the moonlight. He plants not for applause, but for outcome. He doesn't care who's watching. He cares about the harvest. He understands that what's done in silence eventually speaks the loudest. So he keeps planting quietly, faithfully. And when the harvest comes, it isn't a surprise, it's a return. Now ask yourself, are you planting your future in the dark, or waiting for daylight to start? Are your unseen choices building you, or betraying you? It's easy to talk about growth. It's easy to plan for greatness. But your future self isn't listening to your speeches or reading your goals. Your future self is watching your actions, not your posts, not your plans, but your habits and your integrity. What you do when no one's looking is where transformation begins. And here's the truth. The more you build in silence, the less you'll need to prove in noise. When discipline becomes part of you, when consistency becomes your nature, you rise without force. You win without begging. You grow into someone unshakable because your foundation was never built on validation. It was built on truth. Real change isn't sudden or spectacular. It's steady, and it's available to you right now. Not next week, not when life is perfect, but in this moment, in your very next decision. Because it's not just about who you want to become, it's about how you become that person. And the how is always hidden in the small, the silent, the daily. So ask yourself, when the world isn't watching, who are you? When there's no finish line, no applause, no feedback, do you still show up? That's the real test, the forge where strength is built. The future you, the stronger, wiser, richer version, isn't waiting for luck. It's waiting for proof. Proof that you're serious, committed, and willing to do the work, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. So make your silent choices count. Choose the discomfort that shapes you. Choose the habits that stretch you. Choose the work others avoid. Each time you do, you move closer, not to perfection, but to purpose. Not to applause, but to peace. One day, you'll look back not with regret, but with awe, knowing that version of you didn't appear by chance. You built it quietly, relentlessly, brick by unseen brick. Wishing you health, happiness, and strength on your journey. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.